Good afternoon. Thank you for that very lukewarm response. Can I try that again? Good afternoon. Thank you. That was a little better. I started work at 10 years old. That was 1971. I started work in my father's hardware store in England. I happen to be English by birth, Australian by choice, Indian Chinese by mother-in-law, and Singaporean by PR. But back then I was very English, and I started work in my dad's hardware store every Saturday morning and every school holiday. And as the boss's son, I was a very enthusiastic employee. And I learned the names of all the things in the hardware store. And in England, doing up your house is almost a national religion. Every Saturday, men would go to the hardware stores to buy a power drill and put holes in walls or prepare their gardens. And I was very proud when I was at 11, I got the blue jacket that said I could serve customers. And I remember one day bouncing up to a gentleman as he walked into my father's store and said, "Can I help you, sir?" And this guy looked down at this 11-year-old and made a judgment call that I possibly could not help him, and sort of gave me a gruff sort of, "Well, I'm looking for," and he called it X. Now, I don't want to go into the technicalities of what X was, but I knew what an X was. He said, "I want an X." Right? So I took him over to the part of the store where we sold the X's, and I showed him, "Sir, here are the X's." And he looked at me gruffly again and said, "No, I want it bigger." Now, I knew that X's only came up to a certain size. If it got bigger, you called it a Y. So I said, "Sir, you don't need an X. You need a Y." "No, I don't," he said. "Stupid boy. I bought an X from this very store not a week ago." Now, being 11 years old, I had self-doubt, and so I said, "Sir, let me check." And I rushed to the back of the shop, and I checked, but sure enough, X's only came to a certain size. If you need it bigger, you call it a Y. So I went back and said, "Sir, no, I'm sorry, you're wrong. You need a Y." At this point, the guy pretty much exploded. My father, overhearing this raised voice, came to the rescue. And he said, "Sir, what seems to be the problem?" He said, "Well, I want an X, but I want it bigger. Stupid boy says I need a Y. I know what I need." My father did not miss a beat. He goes over to the Y's and picks one up and says, "Sir, you mean an X like this?" And the guy goes, "Yes." Looks at me, "Stupid boy." You know. My father promptly takes the gentleman over to the cash register and ka-ching, rings it up. Now, I'm 11. The tears start to well up behind my eyes, and I'm trying to hold them back because I'm trying to be a man in front of the fellow workers. But I feel betrayed by my very own father. And when my dad has finished taking the man's money, he comes over to me and says, "Son, what's the problem?" I said, "But Dad, you taught me the names of everything in the store, and now you went and tell the guy it's a Y and it's an X." My dad said, "Son, I can understand your problem. You need to decide in life, do you want to be right or do you want to be rich?" Now, I wish I could tell you that I learned that lesson at 11 years old. I certainly didn't. I've had a curious intellect, and I've been studying. I've had a very eclectic career. My first degree is, in fact, actually in physiotherapy. I graduated in 1982, and I got involved in sports psychology in the mid-1980s. And all of my curiosity moved me in terms of what makes people behave the way they do. Why do people behave the way they do? Do you ever wonder that? I mean, as you systemize your shared outsourcing, you want to make it into systems, but people still try and break your systems, don't they? People want to do things differently. And we need to lead these people. And no longer do we need manufacturer employees who just put a nut on the end of the third wheel from the left and just turn that nut. We need people who can think, and we need people who can take ownership and are accountable, and so we need leadership.